Hey friends, Pastor Chad here, Hillsborough Baptist Church, I'm the associate pastor here, also the site pastor down at the Tide in Alma. I want to ask you something. There's something that I've noticed in Hillsborough. I don't know if you've noticed this before. I'm still relatively new living here, but it is windy here all the time. Does the wind ever stop? It's crazy. The other day I was outside. It was a nicer day. But it was windy. Man, it was windy. I was out on my deck and I wanted to barbecue some steak, and I had my barbecue out and I got the propane on, and I finally got it started, and I got it going. I thought, okay, I'll go inside, I'll let the barbecue warm up, and I was inside for probably 5 or 10 minutes, allowing the barbecue to heat up, and I came back outside. And the barbecue was only at like 200 degrees. I was like, what's going on? And so I raised the lid up, and all I could smell was propane because the wind had blown the fire out. And this has happened numerous times over the last few weeks that I've been trying to barbecue. And so I've kind of had to build a little bit of a shelter in the corner of my deck to prevent the wind from blowing my barbecue out. It's crazy how the wind blows, at least up here where I live on top of the hill, and the wind just keeps blowing. And I just wonder, man, is this wind ever going to stop? I have a friend that lives in Halifax, and she was out driving a couple of weeks ago, and one of her favorite places to go, and it was one of my favorite places to go too when I lived in Halifax, was to drive out around Peggy's Cove. And now she couldn't get out of the vehicle, but as she was driving along the road, she noticed there was a sign there. And that sign said this. It says, if you can't change the direction of the wind, adjust your sails. If you can't change the direction of the wind, adjust your sails. Now, we are living in a time where it seems like we are in the midst of a storm. That the wind is howling all around us, and we feel like our whole world is going to topple over. The amount of people that have been laid off, our children being home, we got to homeschool them, we got to work from home, or we can't go to the store without a fear of being infected with this virus that's plaguing our entire world, and have to keep our distance away from everybody. It's a time where we could just give into fear. It's like there's this the storm that's just kind of blowing around us. And the question that I want to ask you is what are you doing in the midst of this storm? Because it doesn't seem like it's going to go away anytime soon. We're probably going to be facing the same circumstances, maybe even greater, worse circumstances in the weeks to come. They're already talking about a second wave of this coming as people relax and feel like, oh, well, you know what? There's not any new cases that are being shown. Maybe I can go out this weekend because it's really nice out, and I can go. And there's this possibility of second waves happening, and so. There could be this fear of when is this ever going to end? Is this ever going to end? The wind is just kind of blowing all around us. One of my favorite movies of all times is The Count of Monte Cristo. And there's a quote that's in that movie that I've always really liked, and it's The Count of Monte Cristo, Edmond, saying to this young man at his birthday party. He gets up and gives a speech, and he says this. He says, life is a storm. You will bask in the sunlight one moment, be shattered on the rocks the next. What makes you a man is what you do when that storm comes. Now, of course, the speech was intended for this young man becoming an adult because he was 16 years old, and in that time frame, it's you're becoming a man. But the sentiment of the quote still stands true even for us today. What are you doing in the midst of the storm, because life is like that. One moment it's sunlight, it's wonderful, everything is great, and then all of a sudden, how fast did this pandemic fall on us? The next moment we're shattered on the rocks. I don't know what's happening in your life right now, but I know that some of the things that have kind of rocked my world and my wife's world and my family's world over the last few weeks, it almost felt like at times that we've been slammed and shattered onto the rocks. But for me, there's been one thing that's been a constant that has made it so I haven't fallen apart, that I've been able to weather the storm, that even though the winds have been rushing all around, I've been able to cope and to deal with it. And that is the person of Jesus Christ. Because of who Jesus is, because of the promises that he has made, because of the assurance that he has given to me, and I feel it, my very being, I know that everything will be okay. Jesus gives this parable when he's talking to a great multitude of people. He says this, and it's recorded in Matthew's Gospel in chapter 7, right near the end of the Sermon on the Mount. And Jesus says this, he says, "Everyone who hears these words of mine is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain fell and the floods came and the winds blew and it beat on that house. But it did not fall because it was founded on rock. And everyone who hears these words of mine and does not act on them will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. The rain fell, the floods came, and it beat against the house and it fell. And great was its fall." Friends, what have you built your life on? Many of us, we build our life on our job security. We build our life on the homes that we have, the cars that we drive, the friends that we have. And when all of those things disappear, we begin to wonder, well, who am I? What do I do in the midst of all of this? In the midst of this storm, job security has become a real issue. How do we pay our bills and afford our homes and our vehicles and all the things that we maybe have been taking for granted? Yes, the government's providing some resources. Yes, our workplaces are being provided with some resources to help make up the difference. Yes, the government is giving some leniencies on student debt and things like that. But for some of us, we're still just grasping at air, at straws, saying, how am I going to make this work? And the fear and the turmoil within us is eating us up. Jesus says these words, and I think this is absolutely incredible, and I pray that this will be helpful for you because it's been helpful for me. Jesus says these three words: peace, be still. Jesus was in the midst of an actual storm. He was in a boat on the Sea of Galilee. He had his disciples with him. And this huge storm came up. And Jesus is sleeping in the boat. And the disciples come to him and they're terrified. And they're shaking. Jesus, wake up. Like, don't you care about us? Are you just going to let us die in this storm? And Jesus gets up and he says, guys, what's the problem? Do you really think I'm going to let you die in the midst of all of this? And Jesus says these three words: peace, be still. And the storm just went poof. The sea calmed and went flat. The winds stopped. Friends, Jesus has the power to give us the peace to weather the storm. Now, I'm not trying to downplay the fact that some people are getting sick, and some people, millions of people have gotten sick, and thousands of people have died. I'm not minimizing that or downplaying that. but there is someone who is greater than even death. And that no matter what comes our way in this life, if we've built our life on the rock, who is Jesus, if we've built ourselves on a firm foundation, the peace that he can give to us will help us weather any storm, no matter how challenging life gets, even to the point of death. He can give us that assurance that this isn't the end, that this isn't all there is. There is something greater yet to come behind the veil. And that is the life that is eternal. Yet for us who are here now that remain, there's something still that he gives us here and now, and that is his peace. Jesus says in the Gospel of John, he says, listen, my peace I give to you. I'm not going to leave you as orphans. I'm going to come to you. I'm going to give you my peace. And so, friends, I ask you, what have you built your life on? What are you building your life on? As the storm comes around us, as the winds blow, will your house crumble and fall flat as a house built on the sand? Or are you building your life on the rock and allowing God to bring you comfort and peace, and yes, even joy in the midst of these times of trial and challenges? Friends, I pray that you will turn to Jesus Christ, the one who is the perfecter of this world, of this life, of our faith, and that you will know his peace.